Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited. It was a little bit of a last minute swap in, so I'm really excited to be here today. Um, Today, we're going to talk a little bit about our session replay feature product of Sentry. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a demo of what Sentry is, how we monitor or build a tool to help you monitor your applications or web apps. And we'll talk a little bit about how we're supporting mobile developers, especially Android developers. So let's go and get started. As I mentioned, I'm going to give you a brief intro into Sentry and our philosophy around monitoring. And then we're going to do a little bit, it's a little bit of a live demo, and then talk a little bit about what else is going on with Sentry. So historically, we've been a monitoring or observability tool, but more recently, we've been pivoting to the word debuggability because really what we want to do is provide enough context for you as a developer to be able to take action as quickly as possible to resolve whether it be an error, a bug, or a performance issue that you're having within your application. So we really kind of focus on three main things. One is understanding what the problem is, who it's affecting, on what devices is the problem occurring, etc. And the way we do that is providing as much context as possible right up front to be able to help you get to the point of resolving the issue. In terms of prioritization, again, giving you that information around who it's affecting, what devices the error is occurring on, etc., allows you to decide whether this is a more high priority item that you need to address, or if this is something that can wait for the next release. And finally, being able to trace issues. So not everything just happens in one area of your application. Oftentimes issues are showing up on the front end, but really are an issue with a database or something on one of the microservices that you might be using. So we try to make it as easy as possible for you to trace the issue down to the root cause so that you can then identify the person on your team who is most likely to be able to fix this issue as quickly as possible. So I want to give you a quick overview of monitoring as a whole. These couple videos that I'm going to show you and walk you through are going to be demoing a web application, but it's the same application that I'm going to use to demo the mobile version. And so I just want to give you kind of a full context of what Sentry does prior to kind of jumping into the live demo of the mobile app. So this is Empower Plant. Empower Plant is our very, very real, not actually real, e-commerce site where we sell these plant things. You'll notice that there was a little bit of a slowdown there when this was loading. Our inventory is not very large, but it took a little while. I really like these plant strollers, even though they're $250. I like the idea of them walking up to me and telling me they need water and food, or sun maybe. So I'm going to buy a bunch of them, one for each of the plants that I have. I'm going to go ahead and apparently not buy. This is what we like to call a rage click. Y'all might be familiar with this. Basically, when a button is unresponsive and isn't doing the thing that you expect it to do. And so your users are clicking multiple times. We detect rage clicks, which I'll show you in a moment. We also have this user feedback widget for web apps, which technically can work on mobile apps, but isn't fully even in alpha yet for that. So take that with a grain of salt. These user feedback widgets allow users to give you feedback right away. We auto detect for spam so that you're not getting spammed on all of that. And we associate those user feedbacks with what we call session replays and also your full trace of your error, which I'm going to demo for you right now. So as a developer, your user just experienced that. There was a slowdown. They weren't able to check out. Now my plants are going to die. And they probably just left. If they did give user feedback, great. But you probably lost a sale. So we want you to be able to resolve that as quickly as possible. And so we have integrations with a number of other applications. This is demoing the integration with Slack. You can see that right when we get both that rage click that we talked about and the user feedback, we get a Slack notification. You can set this up to go to a particular channel, tag certain people, etc. Within the Slack notification, as well as other integration notifications, you'll get a bunch of relevant information that, again, provides you the context that you likely need to determine whether or not this is something that you should assign to, one department versus another, whether or not this is something that you should make a higher priority because it is happening in production versus development, and gives you the context of who it's affecting and where in the code it's likely happening. Okay, so this is going to be a couple-minute demo. From the Slack notification, you can jump straight into our user feedback. User feedback is, again, just kind of users being able to type in what issue that they were having. They can have a screenshot associated with it. You can assign it to people straight from the user feedback. You can see all of the other integrations there at the top. We've got a session replay, which I'm going to save for the mobile demo because it's more interesting there. You can communicate with your team members all from within this one ticket, if you will. But again, you can kind of associate it with other platforms and their tickets. We jump into the session replay. We can see that there are a number of errors that were happening. So likely that slowdown at the beginning when we were first loading our inventory was that N+1 query issue. So we can jump straight into that. We can see how many users it's affecting, how often this is happening, assign it. This is all the type of information that you get with a Sentry issue, whether you're doing a web application, a mobile application, any application. These are what we call our issues. And all of this information around what user this particular issue is happening to, how often this issue is happening across those 827,000 times it's happening in production, on what browsers or what devices. You can go through all of the issues, individual issues, every time this error was triggered. And we can even see that there's another issue that's happening along the same trace. So not only was there that N+1 query issue, but we were also getting a slow database issue. And so we can jump straight into the trace and we can see everything from the front end all the way down to your database and back as it's going through. We also have web vitals as relevant for folks who are developing for the web. And we do have a profiler, which allows you to kind of dig a little bit deeper and see exactly what's happening on what types of devices and people. I'm kind of saying the same thing because we try to make it as easy as possible for developers to get the information that they need. And so anywhere you go within the Sentry application, you're going to have the context that you probably need relevant to what you're looking at. So whether you're looking at the full trace or you're looking at the session replay or you're looking at a particular issue, you're going to get the information that you need. We, of course, have AI. Which I'm going to rewind that just for like 2 seconds. Because what good tech company these days doesn't have AI? No, but in all seriousness, we do try to support you by providing resources for how you might resolve this type of issue. And we even have an experimental way of suggesting some other or suggesting an actual code fix for that. It's all experimental. We try to keep it out of your way. We don't want you to kind of be inundated by AI everywhere you go. Okay, so that was a super fast whirlwind, excuse me, a super fast whirlwind of what Sentry does. Essentially, you as a developer get a notification in whatever form makes sense for your workflow. And as quickly as possible, you're able to jump straight into what the application is doing, who it's affecting, and how you might be able to resolve it. Awesome. Let's not restart that. Perfect. After we launched Session Replay for Web, which was in February of 2023, so about a year and a half ago, we had we had launched beta beforehand. So GA was February 2023. But around that time, we had a lot of folks asking for Session Replay for mobile, which makes a lot of sense because as you'll see, Session Replay is an extremely powerful tool. And arguably more important on mobile because so many people have different mobile devices out in the world. And so being able to reproduce an issue that a user is having is significantly more difficult, in my opinion, when you have a mobile app than when you have a web app. So we did put out this GitHub discussion, which, by the way, we are source available. So you can jump onto github.com/get Sentry or any of our particular SDKs. We support over 100 SDKs, sorry, support over 100 languages and frameworks, and we have SDKs for all of those. So we put out a discussion comment on one of our repositories and asked if folks wanted a session replay for mobile. And overwhelmingly, yes, this is one of our most reacted to discussions on our Sentry repository. So definitely people were hungry for this. So we got to work trying to build this for you all. A little bit about how we built mobile replay. So replays on the web are taken, on the web are taken from basically a snapshot of the DOM as well as like screenshots. And we used this framework called or this library called RR Web that didn't exist for mobile. So we did have to build our own. Essentially what we did was take snapshots of the view hierarchy and take screenshots to create a video-like reproduction of what was happening on the user's device. Now, something that you're going to see is Sentry is extremely, extremely focused on privacy. That's not just privacy for our users, but also privacy for your users. And so we make sure that we always obfuscate any personally identifiable information, or PII. And we do so on the client so that it's never kind of hitting our servers. And you do have some level of control over that. So I'll show you that in just a moment. But basically, we use the view hierarchy to find the positions of things like text boxes, images, labels, and buttons, anything that might have that personally identifiable information. And we redact that information just with some square boxes. We basically draw square boxes over those screenshots before we send them up to Sentry to be able to create that video. Now you can, at this time on mobile session replay, you can decide that any buttons are totally fine. I know for a fact there's no personally identifiable information on buttons. You can show me buttons, or same with labels or images or text boxes. We do recommend that probably text boxes. Anytime any user can put in information, they can put in personally identifiable information. So be careful, but you know your application better than we do. So we don't want to kind of prevent you from being able to do that. This is what the redaction looks like. So on the left-hand side, you'll see that all of the buttons, labels, text boxes, etc., and images are blocked out with these boxes. And on the right-hand side is what it looks like without. Okay, so let's look a little bit about session replay for mobile specifically. First of all, setup for Sentry in general is very easy. It's typically just a couple lines of code. In this case, I'm going to show you how we set up for a React Native app, but it's very, very similar if you're using Kotlin or developing for Android in another way. So really, if you already have Sentry installed, which again, Sentry itself is only about 5 lines of code, you just need to add these two items to the experiments section on our init. And so the first one is replays on error sample rate, and the second one is replays session sample rate. And so basically, a session replay, that video-like reproduction of what was happening on your user's device when an error happened, will be triggered every time an error happened if you set that to 1. You can set that to fewer, so the likelihood of you needing to have that video reproduction of every single time someone hit that same error is fairly small. So you probably don't need to do that every time, but you can set it right there. I'm going to go ahead and rewind this. So you can see additional information here as well. So the sample rate for which an error occurs. Again, we set that to 1 for the purposes of a demo so that we can make sure that the error that we are triggering gets captured. But you probably don't need to set it to 100%. For session sample rate, basically it's, do you want to record like all of the sessions that are happening around this error, or do you want to record none? And again, that's not binary. So 100% is all and 0% is none. And then you can go anywhere in between there. In addition to that, you just have to add to the Sentry config some additional information here, which will show you. Basically, you're just adding in, making sure that we can grab the components that you are using. So then that way the labels that you have applied to each of your screens get translated into Sentry, so that we're not just saying like screen 1 or button, we're actually using the names that you applied to your application. And that's basically all you have to do to set it up. So if you already have Sentry installed, which again is basically just that init, then you just add in those 2 experiments, and then you just make sure that you are grabbing the annotations so that you get the proper context when you're looking at it, instead of just trying to figure out which button Sentry is talking about. So of course, this is kind of the view that you might be used to when you're debugging your mobile applications. And this is kind of what we were trying to re-simulate with our session replay product. And so all of these kind of information, all of this information is what we want to make sure that you have access to. Okay. So this is our mobile version of Empower Plant. You can see that we have that same slowdown here, which is taking quite a while. We have the same products here within our mobile app. We can purchase those products and attempt to go to the checkout. You can switch between different views. Sorry, let me grab some water. You can add items to your cart. In this case, my colleague Christoph, who I normally do these demos with, decided he wanted the baton of voice. So then that way our plants can also scream at us when they're thirsty or need some sunlight. So we can purchase those and grab a couple of other items, maybe. Maybe one of the strollers. This demo is a lot slower. One thing that he did add in this demo was turning off the Wi-Fi and turning it on so that we can see when there's a connectivity issue. So Sentry will detect that as well. And then we can try to go and check out. Put in all of our information with the power of magic and attempt to place our order. And we can see that it'll fail. So exactly the same kind of issues that we were seeing over on the web app, where number 1, when our inventory is loading, it is very slow. And number 2, when we try to actually place the order, we're getting an error and it's not actually following through. Okay. So I'm actually going to show you this live instead of watching a video. So then that way I can kind of walk you through some of these things together. So let me zoom in here. So again, you might recognize this from the first video when I was showing it to you on kind of the web example, but this is Sentry. You have your list of issues over here. This is a mobile React Native project. We have our replays here. We can switch to other projects as well, but we'll go ahead and just stick with this one for now. And we're going to jump right into a replay because why not? Let's check it out. Okay. So this is what a replay looks like within Sentry, whether you're using the web or you're using a mobile app. Um, and basically what's happening is we're watching what was happening on the user's device when the error occurred. On the right-hand side, we can see our breadcrumbs are following along with our timeline. And our timeline down here is matching what is happening over here in our breadcrumbs. So we can see every time there's a navigation, every time there's a user tap. User taps are this kind of bluish purplish color, which can be seen down here. Navigations are that greenish color, which can be seen here. And then, of course, we're going to have errors, which are those red bubbles here. So you can hover over the bubbles down on the timeline, and you can see what errors were happening. You can also see them over here in the breadcrumbs. So let's go ahead and rewind a little bit. We can see here at the beginning, there was an issue with device connectivity. So we can jump to that current timestamp and see that the device connected to Wi-Fi right at the beginning, or was connected to Wi-Fi when the application started. We can also see that the device battery, it was currently charging and the battery was set to 100%. I'm going to try to zoom in a little bit more for you all. And so we try to give you as much information as possible when the replay is starting so that you can debug appropriately, because maybe the issue is related to whether or not this application or this device was connected to the internet, or maybe the issue is related to not having enough battery life to perform something. Right away, we got that same N+1 query issue and slow database issue that we saw on the web application. We can click straight into that, and it'll jump us to that. It'll jump us to that issue view that we saw on the video at the beginning with, again, all of the information we need. So we also had the slow database query issue happening on the same trace. We can see, again, how many people it's affecting. We can see the exact query where this is likely being causing the problem. We can jump into seeing all of these spans that are basically making the same call over and over again and causing a slowdown. And we have all of the information that we had before. So let's hop back into our replay. We can also go to the errors tab. So again, depending on how you're trying to debug, what you're trying to debug, who you are on your team, and how you're trying to approach this, you have a lot of different ways that you can enter into this. Some people prefer to start with kind of the breadcrumbs and just watch what's happening and then click through it there. But you can also head over to our errors tab and get a list of all of the issues that were happening within our application. So we can see right here, we actually had the, oh no, maybe my device connectivity is a problem. Let me just jump right back into this one. Right here, we can see that there was a not enough inventory for a product issue. And that is happening when we try to do the checkout. So our slow database query and our N+1 query issue are were happening kind of for the slowdown when the inventory was trying to load at the beginning. But then when we were trying to check out, and that was causing a problem, and we were doing kind of the extra tapping, that issue was because there wasn't enough inventory and there was no notification of that. So we can see when an issue is actually happening on kind of the front end or within kind of the mobile app versus when it's happening on like a server or a database kind of in the back end. We get that full trace view here within their session replay as well. So you can see down here when we've got that kind of checkout issue, what was going on. You can kind of zoom in here. Sorry, because I'm zoomed into the browser, my zoom is, I'm not used to my zoom, it's this way. But in any case, you have the full trace view here. You can get kind of a preview of that error with the additional context that you will likely need to be able to fix that. Yeah, everything is just kind of right there. You also get all of the network requests right within here. They're all timestamped, so you can kind of click through and see what was happening when that request was being sent. And you also have a console here as well, which in this case wasn't super useful because really the issues were happening on the back end, but it might be useful in general. All right. Finally, you also have the tags. Sentry has automatic tags that we apply to our issues, but you can also have custom tags. And the usefulness of tags is, again, so that you can decide when and how you want to prioritize fixing certain issues. We ideally would want to fix all of the issues coming in right away, but of course that doesn't happen. But also, if you want to be able to test this kind of live on a physical device or even on a simulator, of course, having the session replay is probably enough, given all of the context you have with the breadcrumbs, the errors, the network tab, etc. But sometimes you want to just be able to like try it out yourself and see, like, let me just experience this. And so having things like the operating system name, which platform, which release it was, etc., is useful for you to be able to also reproduce the error if you want to, without having to go back and forth with your customers and try to figure out what they were doing when the error occurred. Okay, I think that's kind of all of the main things that I wanted to show you within Session Replay for mobile. We actually just did our beta launch 2 weeks ago. And so you can try out Session Replay for mobile for free. Right now, Sentry does have trials. First of all, we have a free developer plan. We also are, like I mentioned, source available, so you could self-host if you wanted to. But then we also have plans that are fairly affordable that you can check out on our website. Coming soon to Session Replay for mobile are 3 things that we're really excited about. One is our rage and dead taps. So similar to rage clicks that we saw on the web application, when someone is tapping a bunch of times, you want to be able to detect that. That typically indicates that there's a problem happening. So that's coming to mobile very soon. Highlighting user taps on components. So what this is back when we are in our breadcrumbs here, and we see this user tap happening. We want to be able to highlight the component that the user is tapping on. Right now, you don't see which component the user is tapping on. You see the tap, but we want to highlight the entire component so that you know what is actually happening, which component is being tapped on. So that's coming very soon. You still, again, see the tap, just kind of the highlighting the whole component. And then we want to be able to provide offline support. Not all applications require to be online. And even if they do, not all devices are always online. So being able to kind of give you that information right away is important. Another thing that I forgot to mention is already ready, but we're still dog fooding it a little bit, is our ANR support. So application not responding, making sure that you get that within your breadcrumbs is coming very, very soon. What else with Sentry? I showed you a little bit about our trace view. It's that unified view of all of the services that are running within your application, making it super easy for you to pinpoint exactly where the error is and know exactly which team or which team member to tag in to try to resolve the issue as quickly as possible. I mentioned both session replay and user feedback. Really what these are ways for you to get closer to your users without having to kind of leave and be in their room with them and looking over their shoulder, giving you as much context as possible to be able to reproduce issues that they're having and resolve them. I mentioned leveraging AI with our kind of autofix suggestions. There's 2 things that we're really focused on right now. So autofix in general within the Sentry application, we also have GitHub PR comments where if there is an issue happening and you open up a PR, we will pull in information from Sentry and say, hey, this issue is happening on this PR. Maybe you should try to fix it. Here's a suggestion of how to. So we already have the comments available for you, but actually creating a PR is something that we're looking into. And then our Copilot extension, a couple months ago at Build, Microsoft and GitHub launched the Sentry Copilot chat. And we had one launched with them during that time. So the Sentry Copilot extension basically allows you to copy and paste a URL of a Sentry issue into Copilot in VS Code and quickly kind of get information about what is this issue, what files is this affecting, and how might you resolve them. Okay, so your task now is give Sentry a try. On the screen here, you'll see a QR code. You can also just go to this bit.ly link, bit.ly/getsentry-androidww, and use the code AndroidWW2024 to get 3 months free on our business plan. Again, we do have a developer plan. So if you're a solo developer or an indie developer, you can try Sentry for free all the time. But if you want to give Sentry a try for free for 3 months, go ahead and do that. And then check out our session replay for mobile. Not today. That was a typo. This was live 2 weeks ago. Just came out in open beta. That link right there is to our blog post announcing it. And that gives you all of the links to all of our docs and how to get started. So you should go ahead and give that a try. And that's what I have for you today. Any questions? I did see one question.
Sarah, thank you so much. Yep. You have, first of all, that was awesome. Geeky Jimmy also gave you a compliment, said that you were wonderful and he enjoyed your humor as well. Awesome talk.
Oh, good.
Thank you for the last minute too. For everyone viewing, Sarah, I think, found out about this a few hours ago. So
yes.
Amazing job there. But yeah, Geeky Jimmy also has a question. I've dropped it for you, but can Sentry be effectively used for performance monitoring in large-scale projects?
Yes. Yes. So Sentry is not just error monitoring. As you saw with our like N+1 query issue, for example, we do performance monitoring. In terms of using it with something like Instabug and Crashlytics, I think we are using it maybe instead of. Of course, you might be able to use different things for different bits, but really what we try to do is create an all-inclusive kind of tool where anytime anything is happening, whether it's a slow, like a performance issue or it's an actual bug, you can just jump in quickly, get the context you need, and resolve it as quickly as possible. A couple of things that I didn't point out were, let's see if I can find one quickly. I don't know if I'll be able to. Yeah, so we do also have like when you are in, let's go ahead and open up another one super quick. I'm more familiar with this one. I think this one might have it. So you also can connect to GitHub. And so for example, we have kind of the code here. We show you the code when there's an error happening. You can click into GitHub and it'll open the line in GitHub so you can quickly kind of jump in, open up a PR, make the fix. So we try to make it as quickly as possible for you to have the context you need to take action and resolve it. So we really are developer first. So I definitely recommend, even if you are using something like Instabug or Crashlytics, maybe giving Sentry a try.